So I need you to watch this clip for a moment.
Slavery has been a universal institution for thousands of years, as far back as you can trace human history. And what we're looking at is if slavery is something that happened to one race of people in one country, when in fact the spread of it was around the world. In 1776, which is when Adam Smith published The Wealth of Nations, as well as when the United States got started, he said that Western Europe is the only place in the world where there is no slavery. And even the Western Europeans had vast numbers of slaves in the Western Hemisphere, but not in Western Europe itself. And so if you're going to have reparations for slavery, it's going to be the greatest transfer of wealth back and forth. Because the number of whites, for example, who were enslaved in North Africa by the Barbary pirates exceeded the number of Africans enslaved in the United States and in the American colonies before that put together. But nobody is going to North Africa to ask for reparations because nobody is going to be fool enough to give it to them.
So Thomas Sowell says slavery was universal. He's right. He also says that slavery has existed in many civilizations across thousands of years. But that statement doesn't actually answer the question. The issue isn't whether slavery happened everywhere, because the term slavery is ambiguous. The issue is whether all systems of slavery were structurally the same, and whether their consequences were the same, but they weren't. First off, universality does not equal equivalency. War has been universal too, but that doesn't mean that every war was identical in scale, structure, or long-term impact. The transatlantic slave system in the Americas developed into a racial, hereditary, legal codified chattel system. So status passed through the mother. It created a permanent caste tied to phenotype. That's not a universal feature of ancient slavery. The second point is the Adam Smith reference is a deflection. Yes, Western Europe had largely ended slavery itself inside its borders by the late 1700s, but European powers were simultaneously operating mass slave systems in the Americas. So when you were responsible for chattel slavery, and then you turn around and end chattel slavery domestically while expanding it abroad, that's not moral abolition. It's geographic outsourcing. And the third point I want to make is the Barbary comparison that he does. It's selective framing. He compares North Africa to only the future United States and colonies, not the entire transatlantic slave system that transported over 12 million Hebrew Africans. And even in the US by 1860, there were nearly, and this is all we know so far, 4 million enslaved people, because the system was self-reproducing and hereditary. People were born into bondage. The Barbary Coast Corsair doesn't compare, because that slavery did not create a permanent race-based European underclass spanning centuries in North Africa. It didn't happen. Moreover, there were no multi-century legal caste systems tied to a made-up ethnicity called whiteness. The fourth point is this. Reparations is not about every historical slave system on earth. It's about specific state-sanctioned systems and their documented, traceable aftermath. The U.S. government codified chattel slavery, then codified segregation. That legal continuity is part of the reparations argument. So saying that slavery was everywhere, right? It doesn't dissolve responsibility for a particular creation of a system. It just changes the subject. And that is the pattern with these people who try to deflect, shifting from structural analysis to a broad historical hasty generalization fallacy to make everything sound morally equivalent. But universality does not mean it was identical. And identical is what would have to be proven. But it can't be proven because I showed you just now that it was not true. Shalom.